Welcome to the Silhouettes of Success podcast with your host, successful entrepreneur, broker, and business mentor, Amber Weitzer. Because success comes in all shapes, sizes, and styles, the Silhouettes of Success podcast is shining the light on industrious women with a collection of curated conversations of intentional inspiration designed to inspire your heart, ignite your mind, feed your soul, and gift you with actionable insights directly from inspirational, everyday women who've shown tenacity, grit, and grace, having taken on the challenges in their lives and business and won. Remarkable, down-to-earth, and relatable, Amber and her guests will share with you uplifting and extraordinary real-life success stories, motivational ideas that just might help spark something within you. With the deepest desire to serve you, help you grow so you can begin to shine the light that will illuminate your very own silhouette of success. So, let's get to it.
Hello and welcome to the Amber Weitzer podcast, Silhouettes of Success. I am so excited to bring you today's VIP featured guest for many reasons. She is delightful and a powerhouse in her industry, with the spotlight on her today because another silhouette of success passed on the light and connected us, and that's what it's all about. Our silhouette of success today has led recruitment for some of the most successful organizations in the world, including Accenture, Aon, Hewitt, and Amazon. Now translates her unique global experience to help her clients with their talent acquisition strategies, including outsourcing recruitment and interim leadership. She is a speaker, writer, podcast host, and has been quoted in some prestigious publications. So we'll let her share a little bit more in depth on that. She is a wife, mother of 2 grown children, a fantastic dog, and living in Austin, Texas. So please help me welcome Erin Mcdermott Peterson, partner and global talent acquisition consultant with People's Results and podcast host of Big Fish in the Talent Pond. Erin, hello.
Hi, Amber. Thanks so much for having me.
Well, thank you for joining us today. Erin, I am so happy to be with you today as you share your silhouette of success story. So once again, welcome.
Thank you.
All right, milady, to help illustrate the early shapings of your silhouette of success, would you like to share a little bit about your background with the audience?
Yeah, well, you pretty much nailed it with my bio. I've early in my career decided HR was interesting, and then I narrowed my focus to recruitment and became a recruiter and then a recruiting leader and then an outsourcing leader. And so it's just been sort of one thing that flowed into the next, but all in this very narrow swim lane of recruitment, which is a sort of maybe less well-known area within HR. I mean, everybody's been through interviews, but to really know how the sausage is made and how the technology interacts and the process and the decisions, it might be a little bit of a mystery to most people. And that's what I do. I basically help other leaders figure out how to do it best, and especially at scale. That being helping them figure out how to hire thousands of people in an organized fashion that creates a great experience for everybody. So that's today. As far as my background is concerned, gosh, I don't know how far back you want me to go. I'm a Minnesota born and bred girl, and I am the product of a single parent family. My dad, unfortunately, was killed when I was real young, and my mom raised me and my 2 sisters more or less by herself. So I saw a lot of strength early on. Also, we had a lot of family support. I remember spending a lot of time with both grandmothers, and one of whom is still with us today at 100 years old, going strong. So I've got this. And by the way, she worked until she was 89. So, I've got this wonderful legacy of women in my life who have really paved the way for me to be who I am and helped me understand the sky's the limit. So I feel some responsibility to fulfill that legacy and sort of keep pushing myself, keep trying new things. Yeah. So that maybe helps you understand a little bit about who I am and why I do what I do, but that I just have found my passion as well, which is recruitment and helping leaders do what they do as well as they can.
Wow, how exciting to
Hmm.
hear that about your background and really the tie-ins. And you nailed it when I think you say legacy of these strong women and strong examples and role models in early on in the shaping of your silhouette.
Right. Yeah, it's really true. And I also do some mentoring and work with some volunteer organizations, one in particular called Generation, which is all about helping young women see other women in leadership in organizations. Because if you can see it, you can be it. And I realize I had some very early examples of women who just had sort of made their own way. The grandmother I mentioned, who was 100, she owned her own diner when I was a little girl. So I would go and, hang out and help her in the diner, but I watched her work like a fiend,
Hmm.
like, and
Yeah.
serve these people and make them happy. And so I don't know that she really thought at the time that she was much of a groundbreaker, but she knew that it was a thing she needed to do, she wanted to do. So she made it happen and got up early every morning and went to bed late every night. So I don't know if that's the example that's set for you and you're inclined and energetic, then it makes it easy, frankly.
There is so much to be gleaned from that, from paying attention as a child, boy
Hmm.
or girl, or,
Hmm.
just as a youth, to have that example of, they call it hustle now. It's not really hustling. It's, what? And like you said, she may not have, known it. She was just doing what she was doing. But for us to look back and reflect and to be able to draw on that experience and what we were able to witness is just such a blessing.
Yeah, it really is. And then to have the support and the encouragement, because
Mhm.
what I'm aware of is that some young women may be able to kind of see what success looks like, but they may not have a support system around them of people who are encouraging them and helping them pave the way. Maybe just one other anecdote. My mom, after my dad passed away, she looked around and decided that the school district and the community that we were in at the time was not necessarily going to be the one that was going to pave the way for us to have all the opportunities that she hoped. So she moved us, and that was a big decision. And especially for single moms out there, it's a big deal to, first of all, raise your kids by yourself, but then secondly, to make some tough calls like moving to a new community and reestablishing. But she did that. And I will forever be grateful because she put us in a school district that was fantastic, nearer to family. And I started to have opportunities that I wouldn't have had otherwise. For example, fell in with a crowd of high achieving kids who all had parents who went to college. My parents did not go to college. So I didn't necessarily have that to follow or their experience to really draw from. So I ended up sort of following the trail of all my friends who were, so it was a foregone conclusion that they would go to college. And so I started to think that way as well. Furthermore, I realized going to college would be my ticket to even more opportunity, as most people realize, even though it was going to cost me money and I had to pay for it myself. I just figured I've got to figure it out. I've got to make it work. So, environment matters, I guess, is my point. And I am grateful that I was put in situations and environments where, I could grab onto other people's plans and make my own plan as a result. And then, sort of from there, I just got out of college, pursued any HR opportunity that I thought seemed reasonable and professional, worked for Arthur Andersen and Accenture for almost 20 years. And those were my formative years professionally. I really learned so much from the professionals there because they had a high bar for quality of how work needs to get done and how to serve clients. And again, sort of my view of being around the right people to form my own approach was so helpful. And then I was able to kind of springboard off of that to be in other organizations like Hewitt Associates, where I led recruiting globally for them, had a team in India, had a team in Europe. I actually spent some time in Europe when I was with Accenture doing a expatriate assignment, which it was kind of unique back then, as a woman expat, someone with a young family to go for 3 years and live and work in Europe. I mean, I think I just sort of had the chutzpah and the belief that I could figure it out and make it work. Even though those around me were kind of like, wait a minute, what does your husband do again? And, it was a
Yeah.
little bit of a paradigm shift for most people. Thankfully, I married the right guy, somebody who also would be supportive of everything that I wanted to accomplish. And he was a stay at home dad when our kids were little and was willing to make that sacrifice so that I could do what I wanted to do. So, this is actually one of my main pieces of advice to young women today when they say, oh, how do you have it all? How do you work, have a career, have, kids and all of that? Honestly, my answer is, in my experience, you can't necessarily have it all, not at the same time anyway. You have to sort of make some tough choices. But key thing is be mindful of who you marry. That seems self evident, but be mindful of who you marry, and will that person support your dreams as much as you will support their dreams? And that's the kind of give and take I think that paves the way.
Okay, wow.
I'm sorry. I'm full of all
I
kinds of words here.
don't never say sorry. Never say sorry. I always tease it. Well, I don't tease. I just say it. I am such a note taker.
Uh-huh.
And
Okay.
again, we know we can go back and listen to these, but in the moment, I've got to be able to grab everything and go back and say, whoa, 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 wait, go back, go back. Otherwise, we'll be
Sorry.
doing,
Yeah.
we can do all these great additional segments. There's nothing wrong with that either, because right, because we're just not a one and done type
Hmm.
silhouette. But I have to touch back and going back a little bit to you talked about mentoring at one of the organizations, and I know we would
Hmm.
be talking a little bit about your advocacy roles in your community and different things. But that's so critical what you talked about, especially given the format of this podcast, is being that mentor. And you, what is the group?
Yeah,
Generation? Yeah.
Generation with in the middle it's HER. So
Yes.
genheration.org.
Okay,
Mhm.
so talk a little bit about your work and that group in general. Now, we will, just so our audience knows, include these fantastic resources in the show notes, but talk a little bit about that organization.
Yeah. Well, as a matter of fact, I was not aware of it until I was watching, and I'm a sort of a CNBC addict, I have to say, because my major was psychology, not business, but I've worked in business my entire career. And I think the more you learn the language of business, the better you can show up and be a business partner with clients and colleagues. So, pretty much every morning, for as long as I can while I'm getting ready, I watch Squawk Box, CNBC. This is a little shameless plug for those guys because they have really helped me understand business more than I ever could have otherwise. And one morning on CNBC was this young lady who was Penn grad, and she had realized that the network that she had gained going to a top school like Penn was unique, and that not everyone, even not everyone who goes to college, will end up having that kind of a network. So she had a mission to help young women build networks, regardless of what their background was. And this has turned into this fabulous organization that actually now, in the midst of COVID, holds webinars, but previously in person interconnections for young women with women in business. And they sponsor internships, they sponsor professional development. And so I literally just contacted her via LinkedIn after seeing her on TV. And I said, I want to help some way. So eventually, fast forward, I'm on her advisory board now, and through the organization, do some mentoring. In fact, we just had a virtual speed mentoring event last week, which I was really privileged to be able to participate in. And I have to tell you, Amber, we are in good hands with the women, young women who are looking into the future, because I was so impressed by these women who have connected with Generation and are now kind of themselves seeking mentoring. And oh my goodness, you wouldn't believe some of their backgrounds. And these are not kids that come from privilege. These are kids that have had to make their own way in many cases. They have a plan. Many of them have started not for profits. They work part time. They focus on school. They have a plan for their university. It's really inspiring, honestly. So, like most volunteer situations, I gain more than I give, but I am really happy to give to that organization. So, certainly encourage your listeners to have a look at them. And if I may, one other way that I have been privileged to give back is because, having been a single a parent in a single parent family raised by a single mom, I have a heart for those who are put in that situation. And so I'm on the board of Jeremiah Program, again, jeremiahprogram.org, which is an organization that has 6 locations throughout the US and has a 2-generation strategy philosophy to be able to help single moms and their kids through education, through residential housing, through helping the moms get through college, work part-time, and then the kids meanwhile get not only safe housing, but they get early childhood education in a safe daycare situation. And I love this organization because I feel like it hits on all cylinders for moms who otherwise would be sort of left grasping at straws on how to figure out the kid thing and the education thing and the work thing. And it provides support for all that. So this is another way that my heart just beats for women who have to deal with that and they need help. And there's nothing wrong with that. So those are kind of my 2 extracurriculars in addition to serving my clients, which I'm very happy to do. And then of course, hoping to be available to my grown kids. I have a son who's in Chicago and a daughter who's in Denver. So Southwest Airlines likes me a lot. I'm on them a lot. Happily so.
Wow.
Mhm.
Yeah. So, yes, those miles. But you know what? How fun to be able to go visit
Yeah.
both of them as they're, finding their adult path.
Yep.
That's exciting in itself.
Right.
So rewarding. The organizations you shared, phenomenal. Again, we will put those in the resource section so everybody can go take a look and become inspired and become involved, hopefully in whatever capacity they might choose to be. I hear the passion in your voice and hearing additionally your story of your youth. Obviously, there's a tie in
Hmm.
on what drew you to those programs. So that is fantastic.
Thank you for making that connection. I mean, we all have adversity in our lives, right? And, I think in addition to grieving what might be a sadness in someone's life, then you have to sort of stand on top of it and say, potentially, this will now be the foundation on which I help other people, but with a level of compassion that maybe I might not have had previously, based on what I experienced. So I think God gives us little ways to clear the path for what it is we're supposed to do in this life. And, part of that has to do with what we're handed and the adversity that we have to go through. So it seems clear to me. And, again, I'm just grateful that I have a mom who, showed me how to give back, who showed me how to push through difficult things. And she's still doing that today. She's an inspiration for me as well. So, as well as my older sister who has had adversity of her own, my younger sister. So I sort of feel like surrounded by these amazing people. I mean, for heaven's sakes, why wouldn't I spend time and money giving back? I've really had every opportunity to be able to do that. So anyway, my heart beats for that.
Yes,
Mhm.
I hear it. I hear it. And I think you and I may have that kinship with regards to being fortunate to observe some strong women in our
Yeah.
lives and then want to participate and share whatever we're able to. So,
Yeah. Well,
oh,
that's
my
clear
heart
with your
skips with you.
podcast. That's clear with your podcast.
Oh my goodness.
Cool.
Well, but let's turn it a little bit. So the alarm clock goes off for you, whether it's an alarm clock, whether it's the phone that chimes and the workday kicks off.
Hmm.
Share a day in the life with you. You pointed out something earlier, and then we'll let you answer the question about when sometimes we'll just focus on young women or women in general of all ages, but they look at someone and see the success or what they're accomplishing. And again, we all know there's so much behind the curtain that to that point, but the optics of that, how does she get it done? Is she structured? Is she, is it what I hear about where if you're a successful professional, you have to protect the morning and do a routine? So the alarm clock goes off. What's a day in the life look like for you?
Yeah. Well, so thanks for pointing that out because you are so right that unless you know what's behind the curtain, you assume that this person has it all together, that they've got it all figured out, that they've got a recipe that works every single day for everything that they're involved in. And it is so not the case. Even in my later stages of my career, I have made mistakes. I've done, things that I wish I could take back. I have struggled in roles and needed to apologize and needed to work through issues with people and with processes. And so I love the willingness to admit that if you're going to take risks, you're going to make mistakes. So when the alarm clock goes off, I typically have already a calendar that's guiding me, and I do run around into the different time zones. So I mentioned visiting my daughter in Denver. That's where I am today. I live in Austin, Texas, and we have a little place in Arizona. So that's 2 hours behind. So it depends on what time zone I'm in and which of my clients I'm working with. But I typically have 2, sometimes 3 projects going on at a time with clients who have a talent acquisition challenge and they want my help with it. So a lot of the time is spent on Zoom calls, depending on whether the client that I'm working with is global or not. I sometimes have very early morning calls with other parts of the world or late at night calls, but I'm willing to do that because it's important to me to do it right and well and to flex to my clients' needs. But I would say if I had any organizational advice, it is Sunday night. And
Mm.
Sunday night is hard for some people because you sort of feel that impending doom of, oh, the weekend's over and darn it, and I wish I had another day. And so admitting that I feel that too, I also make it my discipline to sit down on Sunday night, look ahead into each of the 5 days. I put together a couple of not only the planned meetings that are going to happen, but I block off time in certain days to get the work done. And then I always have a couple of personal to dos or tasks that I need to get done. So I work those in, whether that's, sending a birthday card to somebody or checking in with my mom to see how things are going for her, whatever. I actually do kind of schedule those things in to make sure that they get done. And they don't always get done, but I at least purpose to say, okay, each day is going to have a little bit of work, a little bit of personal, hopefully a tiny bit of exercise. I have a standing desk that helps me, at least get up and around a little bit. Balance is unattainable in my experience. Mistakes happen, but if every day and every week you sort of have a plan, let's say you can get it 80% correct. And then I think that 20% is just being human.
So wise.
It just
Oh,
is.
so
Hmm.
wise. Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And yeah, the balance unattainable. That's
Hmm.
for sure. Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
where are these mysteries of, finding balance between, yeah,
Yeah,
no.
no. That's a phantom I've heard in over the years in Bible studies. We talk about a phantom Christian. There's this phantom Christian out there who gets everything perfect in their, faith walk. And I kind of feel the same way with professionalism. There's a phantom professional out there that's getting everything right, knocking on all cylinders at all times. And the person doesn't exist, first of all. And if they did, it certainly isn't me. So,
Right. And we like it that way. We like the imperfections and
yeah.
figuring it out. I think that's what gives us our strength, skill set, and character a lot of times.
That's exactly right.
So going through that and thinking back and reflecting, and you're so authentic in sharing, the humanness of the hiccups and hurdles that we go through during the journey. Was there ever a specific point in time, event, key situation in your professional life that forced you to really take a monumental shift within your business or career? If there was, what was the result? And positive or painful, how did that help you grow?
Yeah. So I'll get specific with you if that's okay. I
Please.
worked for Amazon for a year, just, earlier in my career. And what a great organization, but it was not a fit for me. And I realized it within about 3 months. But by then I had already committed to move my home and my family. And I've moved several times, by the way, and I'm really good with that. Like moving for my career has been something my husband's been supportive of, and we have a wanderlust. So, I'm really happy to move and be mobile. But that felt really heavy. The fact that I within a couple of months realized I'd made a mistake culturally, just the culture fit wasn't there for me. But I'm not a quitter. I am pretty loyal. And when I make a commitment, I stick with it at least for a reasonable period of time. In that particular case, I purposed to stick with it for a year. I did everything I could to contribute. It was rough going, but what it taught me was that I'm not invincible. as hard as I might work, I can't always make it work. And honestly, it knocked me down a little. It helped me be maybe a little more humble, a little more grateful for some of the other experiences I've had. I'm still a huge fan. I buy everything on Amazon. I don't have any ill will toward them. I hope they don't toward me. But that particular job did not work for me, and I took away from it humility and gratefulness and hopefully a perspective for other people for whom a role may or may not work. And if it didn't work for them, there's probably some good reasons. So, yeah, I don't know if that's too specific, but it definitely changed my perspective on things.
Well, I think it's perfect when it's something that is important to you and to share, and that you were able to share the life lessons with us, because I feel that part of the reason we're out there sharing with the audience the other silhouette of successes is there's probably somebody that is feeling exactly what you just shared. And so that's inspirational to them to hear your journey, to hear your takeaways and the growth that you've obtained because of that. You had the clarity to see that. Might not have been immediate.
Yeah, that's right. It wasn't.
Right?
It was not immediate, but I'm here to encourage that person.
Yes.
It's going to be fine.
Yeah.
It's going to be fine. Whatever happens, it'll be fine. you know,
Right.
and it's hard to see from when you're in the middle of a difficult situation, but that would apply to a lot of things, right, Amber? It's going to be fine.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, I'm going to be okay. You just have to kind of get through it, be gracious, be graceful to other people, and you'll get to the other side.
Fantastic. In talking about that as well, is there a special or specific career accomplishment or achievement that you are most proud of? And tell us a little bit about what that means to you.
Yeah, the international thing was a passion and a goal. The fact that I was able to be an expat leading a team internationally and in country. A lot of people have international connections, but it's a special challenge, I think, to be actually in country in an area where you don't speak the language, and you sort of have to have a really thick skin. I did not have a really thick skin prior to that experience, living and working in Germany and the role was working across West Europe, but I was living in Frankfurt, Germany. And here's what I took away from that is that, as humans, we're all pretty much the same. We want to do meaningful work. We want to love our families. We want to have some success. We want to serve. And that doesn't differ by country or by culture. I loved that upfront view of that. What I would say is that if you choose an international career and an ability to work internationally, what you have to do is have that thick skin, eventually build the thick skin, in that you may, at least I had the insecurity up front of wanting to please everybody, wanting to be that person who was ultimately sensitive to cultural differences. I wanted to learn to speak the language, and I did to some extent. I worked very hard to be able to at least having a conversation in the coffee room with my colleagues, in German. But there's always a kind of a low level of stress when you're operating in another country, and that is you don't know what's coming around the next corner. You don't know who's saying what that you can't understand. But what I found was that I grew in terms of my own confidence and my own ability to take risks and my own ability to overcome obstacles, and frankly to really get up close view of how other people live and work and gain an appreciation for that. So that's probably a little bit too long an answer. You can edit that out if you want to too.
Never.
but
Nope. going to say right now, no.
But
That's
thick,
perfect.
thick skin,
Yes.
confidence, and it all comes with taking risks. And,
Yeah.
you mentioned earlier my podcast. I have a podcast where I interview heads of talent acquisition because this is the group that I serve. And inevitably, when I ask those people what they wish they could tell their 22-year-old self, it's always about confidence and risk taking. And isn't that interesting that as an older version of ourselves look back and go, darn it, I wish I'd taken risks earlier. I wish I'd had more confidence. But, to a certain extent, that can't happen until it happens. So,
Right.
you have
Yeah.
to sort of grow into yourself over time. But I would say take a risk, especially to young women today. Take a risk. It's going to be fine. Grow, make mistakes. The confidence will come.
That's fantastic. Oh, what a way to go into a quick break. So, we're going to take a quick break to hear from this episode's sponsor. We'll be right back.
Is it time to sell your home? Build that dream home? Right size? Or are you ready to invest in real estate? Couture Real Estate Firm is a local female-owned independent brokerage laser-focused on services exclusively tailored to our clients' real estate goals. With our forward-thinking business model, we have a fully mobile, luxury real estate concept allowing convenience, flexibility, efficiency for our clients in style. Amber Weitzer, broker-owner of Couture Real Estate Firm, has over 20 years in the real estate industry and is a second-generation broker. She provides straightforward business practices, integrity, and intelligence with a commitment to a high-touch, consistent customer service experience. We take great pride in our reputation as a strong, referral-based brokerage. Discretion, tenacity, respect, and proactive business practices have earned Couture Real Estate Firm a loyal, repeat client business with a trusted global partner network. We strive for ultimate client satisfaction with successful results, doing it with class, consciousness, and a little avant-garde. In addition to serving our clients and vendor partners, we are extremely honored to be actively engaged in supporting the communities we serve by promoting small businesses, schools, and nonprofits. Real estate is direct sales business at its core, and we are highly trained sales professionals with the Mike Ferry organization, adding dimension to the industry. Passionate about customer service, dedicated to client satisfaction, and driven to achieve successful results for our clients. Call Couture Real Estate Firm today at 817-233-7239 to discuss your real estate goals.
All right, we're back, Erin. Thank you again, especially going into that break, talking about the thick skin and confidence and risk. And the key sometimes is versatility, and that can be difficult for some of us. So we have to learn that over time.
Yeah. Yes.
Wow, that is amazing. So switching gears a little bit, as someone who is so strong and successful and just worldly in all so many different facets, where do you turn to for support?
Well, it's a great question. My faith in God would come first on that list for sure. It is the thing that helps me know everything's going to be all right ultimately, right? So I really don't fret about a whole lot of things. What I will say is that I really love yoga and breathing and that my Calm app. I don't know if anybody has that on their phone, but I do enjoy that in the morning and the evening just to kind of make sure I'm breathing and stretching and kind of having some kind of brain body connection. I think that's really important. But in terms of the who I turn to, a lot of people say this, and I would be in that camp as well. My spouse, my husband, is the person who knows me best. He and I share all of our history. We got married right after college, so we were children then, 22 years old, right out of Concordia College in Moorhead, Minnesota. And he's my best friend, has been that entire time, and he knows me best. And he'll call me out when he thinks I'm off base. He will give me advice, or he'll just be quiet if he thinks that that's what's necessary. And our relationship has also not been perfect, with lots of bumps along the way, but 36 years later, I have to say we are stronger than ever. And part of that is we just have this bond, this trust, this shared history. And while I am, I mentioned earlier the willingness to move for a job and to switch jobs. I'm a loyal person, but I'm also willing to make changes. The thing that has never made sense to me would be to change my husband. I I have to say that's the one loyalty that I will never give up on. And although I do lovingly call him my first husband, FYI. So
Yes.
that's he and I joke about that. But he is my friend, my confidant. So God and my husband would come first and second on that list, and then beyond that, my two sisters and my mom.
Yeah.
So I am blessed to have that kind of a circle. Certainly many friends as well, and so that would be on that list. But I would say I start with family.
It's so endearing to hear this story, but to know the promise is there. Anymore in society, sometimes one might question that as a possibility. The story that you've shared about your relationship and the 36 years, and there's real in between that, but the promise and the underlying is just a beautiful, beautiful thing. So
Yeah.
thank you for sharing that, because it's out there. It's just sometimes I think it gets lost in all the noise.
Well, that's right. And I think
Yeah.
we need examples of, fidelity, longevity,
Yes.
success, if you want to call it that. But again, to my point earlier, what pain and adversity gives you in many cases is the gift of compassion. And so as it relates to marriage, I would say for people who have made the decision no longer to be married, I've got no judgment, none, because I know very well how hard it is. And
Hmm.
so,
Absolutely.
I believe in, grace for wherever you're at in your life. And just because my situation is what it is, doesn't mean that I don't have compassion for those who've made a different decision.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. Perfect.
Mhm.
So we talked a little bit about your Calm app and the yoga, and I like how you said that, the brain body connection. That's fantastic. So when you have time to relax and unwind, what do you enjoy doing?
So hiking would be first on the list. I
Huh?
love getting out in nature. We are fortunate to, I mentioned earlier, have a little place in Sedona, Arizona, which if you've ever been there, it's the home of the Red Rocks, and about 5,000 different hikes within a stone's throw. It's really unbelievable how beautiful that place is. And so we're just fortunate that we have access to that. Over the years, we have gone there a number of times on vacation and always had this dream of if we could ever make it work, we like to spend more time there. So thankfully, we're able to do that. But as our kids were growing up, and again, my husband, being this amazing example for me of frankly balance. Remember that balance topic, which I don't have? Yeah. Well, he
Right.
does actually. He's a super balanced guy. He's a pilot and he takes his career seriously, but he also balances extremely well through a bunch of other stuff. One of the things he always insisted on was 2 weeks in the summer. I had to take that time off from whatever job I had at the time when our kids were growing up, and we went on a road trip. So this was after we lived in Europe. They were little then, and we did a lot of traveling then. So they saw 26 countries before they were, 7 years old each, which was awesome. But once we get back into the US, we decided, okay, now we need to focus on our kids being able to see our own country. And so, my husband, Gary, realizing the brevity of life and the brevity of the time you have when your kids are growing up, he just put a plan together. And every summer we had a different part of the US that we were going to see, whether it was the East Coast or the West Coast or the South or the Rockies or the Tetons or whatever. And so we hopefully, gave our kids that same joy of travel, joy of hiking, getting outdoors. And so I have appreciated that. Honestly, if it were up to me, I would have sort of taken long weekends here and there, but because he insisted, 2 weeks, you got to take 2 weeks off, at least when they were growing up. I really appreciated that because it,
Yeah.
fostered that love of the outdoors.
What a worldly gift. What a
Yeah.
gift. I like his plan. Oh, goodness. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Well, Erin, it has been a sheer joy and wonderful visiting with you today. And as we begin to wrap up and keeping the promise to share intentional inspiration with our audience, do you have a key piece of go to advice or something that you treasure that you'd like to share with our audience?
It's a great question. Grace and mercy. Those would be my two keywords that I try to keep in mind in every interaction. And by this, I of course I mean the divine kind, but there's also a practical kind of grace and mercy. And I do feel that we're in this really interesting time in history when there's maybe less of that than we wished. And so, what I always try and keep in mind, whether it's professional or family or just for myself in particular, have a little grace and mercy, Erin. That's my encouragement to myself and maybe to those who are listening. It'll
That's
get us a long way.
fantastic. Yes,
Mhm,
agree. I like that. I like that.
mhm.
Well, Erin, where can our audience go to find and connect with you, maybe on your socials, or support you in your continued success?
Yeah, well, thank you for asking that. So, my consulting firm, of which I am a part, is peopleresults.com. And it is actually on the web, people-results.com. So, hopefully, that makes it easy to find. I lead our talent acquisition practice, and I am happy to help my clients figure out how to do talent acquisition better, whether it be global or local. And that's my kind of day-to-day responsibility. I also would love, if it's okay, to shamelessly plug my podcast, which is Big Fish in the Talent Pool. And you can find that on social media, but also just on anywhere you consume podcasts, of course, Apple, Spotify, and elsewhere. And it's Big Fish in the Talent Pool with Erin Peterson. So that hopefully allows an easy Google search.
Perfect. And what we'll
Mhm.
do is make it even easier. How about that? And we'll put the link on in the
Thank you.
resource section.
Perfect.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Erin, thank you once again for sharing your silhouette of success with us. You have been an inspiration and a joy to speak with today.
Amber, thank you so much. And thank you for the good work that you are doing to help women be seen. Like I said earlier, for young women, if they can see it, they can be it. And so you're paving the way for that. So thank you for what you're doing.
Thank you. It's our teamwork. Teamwork.
Absolutely.
All right. Enjoy your day. Thank you
All
again,
right.
Erin.
Take care.
Okay. Bye bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Silhouettes of Success podcast. If you enjoyed the show, make sure you subscribe so you don't miss out and join us for all the new episodes. We are here for you and with you. We encourage you to share this podcast on all your socials and pass on the light to help illuminate another silhouette of success. Amber would love to hear from you, and you can find her on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, or head over to amberweitzer.com. Let's connect. Help us all shine and leave us a review too. To find out the latest ways to inspire your heart, ignite your mind, and gain actionable insights, subscribe at amberweitzer.com. We are honored, humbled, and full of joy that you've tuned in. Remember, you are exactly where you need to be, right here with us. This is the Amber Weitzer podcast, Silhouettes of Success.